A lot of people will watch it after too.
Yep.
Okay. There we go. All right. Good noon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Chrissy, and I would like to welcome you to a very special Independent Bookstore Day event with New York Times bestselling author and very good friend of the Doylestown Bookshop, Jonathan Maberry, who's going to be speaking with audiobook narrator and very cool actor Ray Porter as they discuss Ink and a lot of other neat things. Ink is a standalone supernatural thriller about a memory thief who feeds on the most precious of dreams. Please enter any questions you may have in the chat box. We'll go into the Q&A portion after our guests have finished their discussion. A little bit about our guest today. Jonathan Maberry is the New York Times bestselling and multiple Bram Stoker award-winning author of Deep Silence, Kill Switch, Predator 1, Code Zero, Fall of Night, Patient Zero, and the Pine Deep trilogy, among others. His V-Wars series has been adapted by Netflix, and his work for Marvel Comics includes The Punisher, Wolverine, Doomore, Marvel Zombie Return, and Black Panther. His Joe Ledger series has been optioned for television. Ray Porter is the multiple Earphones award-winning and Audie-nominated narrator of audiobooks such as The Second Life of Nick Mason. A veteran of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, he has also appeared in Argo, The Runaways, Sons of Anarchy, which is one of my favorites, Justified, Almost Famous, and many other TV and film productions. Hello, and thank you for joining us. Happy Independent Bookstore Day.
Independent Bookstore Day.
Yes. Love our indies.
Absolutely right.
So,
absolutely right.
And it's nice to be back at Doylestown Bookshop. It's one of my favorites. So
I need to come visit this fabled and famous bookstore. I mean, I've been hearing about it, so I want to head east and go.
We'd love to have you.
It's a great store, and they actually have two now. They have one in Doylestown and one in Lahaska. And
okay,
I have a lot of weird history with Doylestown Bookshop.
You do?
I first got on their radar when I was doing a nonfiction book years and years ago under a pen name.
Ooh.
A copy of it over there, called The Vampire Slayer's Field Guide to the Undead, written by Shane MacDougall.
Oh.
Yeah. Shane being Scottish for John, and MacDougall being one of the Scottish clans my family's related to. And we did an event there, and it was really popular. And it was, I think it was 1999 or something, 2000.
Wow.
And the previous owners and the folks who have it now. And between that time and when I moved to California in 2013, I launched a ton of books there. All of my books were launched there, in fact.
Well, that's why I know the name is through, working with you and you telling me about the book launches happening at Doylestown Bookstore. And yeah, you've got some real history with it.
I do. And plus it was right down the street from the writer's room of Doylestown, where I which is exactly what it sounds. It's a writer's center, classes and workshops and so on. And I was running that for a while, for about 4 years, I think. And it was, I wrote, or rather sold Ghost Road Blues, my first novel, while I was there. In fact, I remember getting the news while I was, teaching a class that my first books had sold. But also I taught a class there at the bookstore, experimental writing for teens. Each week, what we do is each week we take a different genre of writing, talk about it a little bit, and then have the kids do exercises. And two of the students from that group actually went up selling books.
Wow.
And you read two of them. Rachel Lavin, who did Dark of Night and Still of Night, was a teen student in that class. And then later on, we went up doing two, post-apocalyptic novels together.
Yeah.
And then Robin Tafoya had written a pretty cool vampire novel, and that was published. She started writing it in the class, and it was published later on. So, yeah, I have some fun history there. And I always make a point to go back when I visit again.
Well, I love independent bookstores. I always have. And for me, there's a certain kind of geography, city to city, is like, if I'm in a city for any period of time, the thing I like to do is go find, the independent bookstore, the kind of the landmark. And here in Pasadena, we have Vroman's, and obviously when I was living in Portland, there was Powell's. Have you ever been to Powell's?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. But city to city, there's always an independent bookshop that's been there for years. They have everything, and I don't know, they're really important places.
Well,
So
one of the things I found with the indies, I mean, you go to the big box stores, the big chain stores, and yes, they can tell you what shelf a book is on, but in the indie stores, they know the books. And they
yeah,
can tell you
exactly.
about the books. They're dedicated readers, not just people who are getting a paycheck working in a bookstore. And that
And
really matters.
there's often a cat, which is nice.
Yes. Usually something crawling around on the floor, though
Yes.
past times that was me.
Yeah,
But
well,
like in one indie bookstore, one of the folks there had recommended to me a novella called Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval, a writer I had never heard of, and read it. It was brilliant. And it was what they had done. What Victor had done is he took one of H.P. Lovecraft's most racist stories,
okay.
and spun it around and retold it from the point of view of the black characters.
Wow.
And that was incredible. So I actually went up when I became editor of Weird Tales. First thing I did was ask him to write a story for me, and now
That's
that's in
fantastic.
development for film.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think Jordan Peele is talking to him about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So now, aside from our love of independent bookstores, we've
Yep.
had a fun relationship.
Yes.
And in fact, the very first time I ever heard of Ray Porter was when this came out on
Wow.
audio.
Wow. That was quite a time. I was at Blackstone Audio in Ashland, and they said, "Oh, we've got this really interesting looking thing." And I looked at the genre, and I sort of saw a thumbnail sketch of what the book was about, and was like, "Oh, this is cool," and did it. But you were the first time that an author had contacted me after the book had come out. You wrote me a little note, and I was like, "Oh my God, an author heard me,"
And I was like fanboying out that a guy who'd been in TV shows and movies who was reading my book. So
Yeah.
a little bit of fanboying going on back and forth.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But it was so much fun. And I mean, how many books in are we now? Just with Joe's story.
With Joe, well, you're going to be reading the 12th Joe Ledger novel.
That's what I was thinking.
Done already 2 Joe Ledger short story collections and a Joe Ledger anthology.
Yes.
And I have this fall, I'll have a new Joe Ledger short story collection coming out. And there's some original material in that called
Yes.
Secret Missions. And
Yeah.
Relentless comes out in July. So there's a double shot of Joe coming out this year.
I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it.
I can't wait to see what you think about Relentless, because it picks up shortly after the events in Rage.
Yes.
And I've gotten a lot of hate mail from people about the way Rage ended.
Well, I gotta say, the last, just narrating the last half hour of that book was hard. And I'm not complaining at all. I think it's great. It's excellent. But it was tough. I mean, just as an actor, it was hard.
Yeah, there are a couple of times I heard catches in your voice, and
and it's like, yeah, just go with it. It's I'm feeling this, and the text says this, so yeah, let's do this. But I remember finishing that and just like, well, I think I wrote to you.
Yeah.
Right after I'd finished it.
Yeah.
And said some ththings I can't really say on a Zoom call.
You did use a few interesting words. Yeah.
Put me through the car wash, man. It was it was hard stuff, because I mean, to actually show up and be present to the dialogue and to do it, to, I guess, perform it as a narrator, I had to go there. And yeah, it was wonderful, but it was a rough journey for sure, which I love. I mean, I like a writer that asks something of their audience. So
yeah, and it's it's a fun thing or an interesting thing when we do these types of creative projects where we peel back the armor and go right for the vulnerable skin in what we write. I mean, as an actor, you get to play a lot of those sorts of moments. As a writer, we're actually alone with it at first, because you're in your head you're going to write that scene, and you kind of have to brace yourself to get in there, because we fall in love with our characters.
Sure, of course.
And also, I'm about to finish my 41st novel now, so I'm experienced enough with fan reaction. And
Yeah.
as I'm writing that, I know I am going to get so fried by fans for this. They're going to hate me for this, you know, as has happened at the end of Dragon Factory with Grace, and
Yeah.
other books where beloved characters have had to die because it's what drives the plot. It's what was intended in the plot.
Well, how wonderful though that a reader would have a sense of ownership in that way.
Yeah.
Then you've really gotten there. Don't ever mess with Ghost.
No, Ghost is pretty
That's all
safe.
I'm saying.
Yeah. There's one moment though when I was at an event down in Texas, Teen Book Festival in Texas.
Yeah.
Thousands of kids all over the place, right?
Right.
And this little Chinese girl is stomping her way toward me. I mean, not just walking; she's stomping. She stops in front of me, points me as, "I hate you! Why did you do that?" And it's like not the sort of thing you want a child to be saying to an adult male in a crowd,
Well, there's that. I mean, just in general, not something you want to hear, no matter who's saying it.
Well, she had just, on the way to the event, she had just finished the second in the Rotten Rowan books, and a key character dies, and it was her favorite character. And oh my God! And then her parents come rushing over and very loudly say, "Oh, it's okay. She just read that scene in the book." I'm going to tell everybody there, so that security was not called on me.
That's good.
But yeah, the people get involved with the characters.
I love that. I love that that it resonates with people. I think that's marvelous.
And it's funny for actors. It's sometimes a bit of a different twist because your character in the TV show Justified, is a reprehensible character,
awful in every way.
So when I mentioned that you were in Justified, people say, "Oh, I was so glad when that character died." So a bit of a different reaction to death there.
Yeah, I wasn't, because it meant I was unemployed. But that was he was awful. But I honestly, for me, it's a lot more fun playing those kind of characters. It's just, you get to, I think that it requires a great deal of empathy in general to be able to go there for characters like that. But it's just fun. I mean, you get to say and do things you would never do.
Oh yeah, we would hope.
Yeah, exactly. And it's but I do remember I've had several people turn to me and say, "Don't you ever play anyone nice?"
Well, Dark Side's nice. Actually,
Dark Side is nice.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. I mean,
okay.
Most people who know you're acting have seen you in Monk or Modern Family or Argo or those things. But you're doing something different in the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. It's you, but it's motion capture you. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's me. I mean, I did mocap, and believe me, you don't want to see me in that black lycra suit for mocap. And then they have this other weird, like, sort of pajama suit thing that you wear for digital things. And myself and Peter Guinness and Kieran Hines were in those suits, and we were wearing headgear with two little cameras right in our faces and a light in our eyes so that they could capture our faces when they were doing the CGI later. They'd be able to match mouth movements and some expressions, and that sort of thing. And then we're acting the scene, but I didn't know what Darkseid was going to look like in the Justice League basically until it came out. So, I mean, I did vocal stuff. Voice is a little ragged today, actually. Sorry about the constant coughing. I did all of the, some of the moves, but I did all of the scenes and all of that, and definitely had a specific voice for that character. And then it was just waiting to see the magic that was worked by these people. And of course, at first I wasn't even in the film because they had a different director. And so in 2017, you didn't see me. And then basically because of the fans, the movie is out now on HBO Max. And yes, you can see me in all my evil glory.
And there was a lot of fan pushed to specifically for you to get, to see you when people started talking the Snyder Cut, they were also, hashtagging Ray Porter too.
Yeah, it was interesting. What happened there was, I mean, I was under an NDA. I couldn't really say anything. Somebody leaked it. Somebody high up in the production apparently leaked it to a podcast or a blog or something. So, one night I went to bed and I had like 300 Twitter followers, loyal audiobook listeners, which was great. And get up the next day, I've got 2,500 and an inbox that's filled with, "Hey, we heard you played Darkside." And I panicked. I didn't want the powers that be to think that I had violated the NDA. And so I, contacted them immediately, and DC and Warner Brothers were like, no, we know, it's okay. It wasn't you. That's fine. But even then I wasn't sure that we were going to get a cut of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then when it was announced that it was coming out, and in the meantime, Zack had contacted me to do some additional, I recorded it right here, actually. I'm in my vocal booth. So I knew that it was going to come out, but I wasn't sure, when and all of that stuff. And so when it finally did, it was very gratifying. And it was interesting because I had never dealt with fans on that level. I mean, I would get very nice notes from people who'd listened to something I did in an audiobook, and that's wonderful. This was mathematically on a completely different scale. And yeah, it's been very warm. Generally, it's been very kind.
Mhm.
Crazy in the best ways. Um and it's been quite a journey for sure.
And now action figures.
Action figures and like t-shirts and stuff. Yeah, I'm wearing me today because wow.
I'm looking forward to the first time you go to a convention where we're both at, and
Yes.
I'll be the dark side groupie, and you can be the
Exactly. Yeah, I went to my first I went to a con before things really got seriously locked down, and got to, sign autographs and do all that. And that's something that I had never done in volume, and I mean, this probably from book signings where you get past about 25, 30 times, you actually forget how to write your own name.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I had to stop and like, oh God, I got to practice my name, my signature. It's crazy.
Yeah, the first time I really really had to do that sort of thing, as I was at something called Book Expo America in
Okay.
New York, and gazillion people. And early on, they would sit you at a table and give away hundreds of copies of your book to, because it's booksellers and librarians and.
Well,
And
I think, wait a minute, at the Javits, I think that's the, or at least it became the same venue where at the same time the Audio Publishers of America were also meeting, and they would have the
Yeah.
Audio Awards at
Yeah.
that same time. Yeah, I went to the Javits for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I had one of the signings. The first huge signing I had there was for Rotten Ruin, and
Oh yeah.
they had mountains of the books to sign.
Right.
And plus, at the same time, one of my Marvel graphic novels had come out, and something else had come out. I went up signing like I don't know, 5,000 books over a couple of days, and it's like, you come out of there. How's your hand? Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but it's fun too, and
It's
I
wonderful.
love fan events. I really do. I miss.
I love them, and I have to say, having been sort of brought under the wing of this fandom, I've loved it. I've met some wonderful people, and again, crazy in the best possible way,
Yeah.
and it's really enjoyable.
We got to get you into San Diego Comic-Con and Dragon Con. We should talk.
Yes, please.
Now, one of the things that this year, or last year rather, was a highlight of my year was not only the release of Ink, but your performance of the
Oh,
novel.
thank you.
It is my favorite thing you've ever done.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. I've listened to. It's weird because I usually listen to my audiobooks when they come out because I enjoy your performances.
Thank you.
But it's one of the rare. I think it's the only one of my own books I've listened to 3 times now.
Wow.
Because the performance really brought it alive, and
I
that's
really
a nice
appreciate that.
collaboration.
Well, the
I
book is fantastic. And I've actually turned a ton of people onto it, not, hey, listen to me reading this, but just, hey, you should read this book. I mean, it's amazing. It was certainly a departure for me anyway, as, having come up with a lot of your books. It's very, very different as a standalone.
Mhm.
But what a story. And there's so many layers to it. And I mean, it was a pleasure to perform it. But it was also just a pleasure to read it, you
Well,
know.
now, did you do a cold read on that one too? Because I know you do those on my ledger books.
Um, I did a little bit of a read just to kind of get the lay of the land, but my whole thing. I like it to be as fresh as possible for the listener and for myself. I mean, that just seems to work better for me.
Yeah.
I know a lot of other people do really extensive research and that helps them. My method's a little bit different. So I wouldn't say it was a cold read of it, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff I narrated. That was the first time that I was reading it.
Cool. And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to you reading my next. Well, you have Relentless to read. You're recording
I've
that September?
Relentless is in the pipe.
No, wait. What month are you recording Relentless?
Soon.
Soon.
I've gotten an advanced copy of it. I need to check
May
the
or
calendar,
June,
but
maybe.
it's yeah.
And then I think the
Um,
next one of mine after that may be the short story collection, but early next year or sometime next year, you'll be recording my first epic fantasy novel too.
I'm so excited about Kagan.
Kagan the Damned.
I'm so excited about Kagan the Damned. I can't tell you.
It's a weird thing because in fact, I even have a copy of the very first novel I ever bought somewhere around here. Was Conan the Wanderer. It was one of
Oh,
the
okay.
old Lancer paperbacks, and uh, so I've loved swords and sorcery fiction.
Right.
Robert Howard and Carl Albert Wagner and Michael Moorcock, who I'm actually now
Sure.
chatting with about doing something for Weird Tales, and so getting to write this is fun. The world building is incredible. You'll have fun pronouncing the names of all the countries because the map is going to go in there too.
Thank you so much.
I'm actually planning a pronunciation guide.
Are you?
Yeah.
I think that's actually a great idea. I think the more that authors can kind of this is tough. Where authors can lend help on things like pronunciation and that sort of thing is wonderful for readers. I'm not just talking about narrators. I'm talking about readers because in people discussing the books, oh, I thought it was pronounced this way. If they can know that, that's great. But you also have a real light touch as far as you're not a big adverb guy. You're not a big, I'm going to dictate absolutely everything about this. You let the listener or the reader create in their own minds, what's going on. So that's what I mean by helpful in a good way. So to have a pronunciation guide for things is wonderful. I'm certainly going to use it because you haven't given me one before.
No, well, there will be one actually for Relentless. There's a couple of things in there that
Yeah.
just a couple, but because Relentless also hops around from country to country to country to country.
Yeah.
And not only do you have the names of places like there's scenes in Romania and so on.
Right.
You also have people speaking those languages.
Yes.
Which I do not envy you. How you have to do that because a lot of phrases and a lot of languages in that book.
I will do the research. I will get it sorted out.
I need to buy you a really good bottle of scotch or bourbon, whichever is your preference.
I'm a Scotch guy.
Good man. We have a question here from Robin. The theme to ink is fascinating. How did you come up with it? It's scary to think that disappearing tattoos would erase memories. Glad I never got a tattoo. It's one of those funny things where I had a friend who had a really important tattoo. It was him and his wife, and they've been married forever, and a tattoo. And then she bagged out and left him. And he had the tattoo removed, and the scar, because he's pretty dark skinned to begin with, the scar just shows up, and everyone asks what tattoo. More people ask about the tattoo once it was gone than they did when it was there.
Yeah.
I started thinking about the memories associated with tattoos, what happens when they're gone, and so on. And that just kind of moved me over to the idea of what happens if somebody could steal the tattoos associated with your most important memories. And Owen Minor is my I think the creepiest villain I've
Boy,
come up
there's a lot wrong with Owen. I loved playing him. That's a whole floor of a psychology wing. Yeah, what a fun character to play, because it wasn't, it wasn't pat. I mean, you couldn't catch him under your thumb as far as what is he. And he just gets stranger and stranger and stranger and really fun. I've always felt, as far as tattoos go, I understand why people have them removed. I understand it's a very, very painful process to have them removed, and
Mhm.
it can leave scarring. To me, some of the most beautiful tattoos I've ever seen have been cover-ups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as someone who's going to get one covered fairly soon, it's exciting to see these, like, huge, beautiful works that are done that way. I would never remove one, I think, with a laser or whatever, because I mean, the minute you put ink on there, you're permanently marked. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I have not yet had a tattoo. I keep saying if ink is, or if, well, the Monk Addison character, I'm going to talk about
Right.
Monk for a second. If he winds up in a movie or a TV series, I will get a tattoo.
Really?
Yeah, that's. And by the way, apparently ink has been given to Vin Diesel, who is reading it right now with an eye toward
Oh,
Monk
cool.
Addison. But
Cool.
what I mean, you brought that character to life. You're the only
I'd like
reader
to play
I've
Monk
ever read.
Addison, please.
Yeah, I read
Vin
it.
Diesel, indeed.
Well, it's got this weird box office thing, It's
Dude, come on.
yeah, I'm
Anyway.
with you. I'm with you. But it's Monk Addison is actually the only character I like as much as Joe Ledger.
I
He's
love
become,
Monk Addison.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you embodied him really well. What I mean,
Thank you.
as an actor taking on a character in a book,
Yeah.
how is that different from taking on a character in a show? And how much of you is embodied within that character?
It's a really good question. With a book, typically there's a lot more information about the character. And, one of the things I do, whether I'm in a play or a TV show or whatever, or even narrating a book, is, I learned something a long time ago, which is, if you want to really know what a character is, look at what everybody else says about him, even obliquely. That can have great amounts of information for you. So typically with a book, you have a lot more buttressing. There's a lot more sort of understanding of what the character is. For me, it's just about being as present as possible to the text in that given moment. And the character will tell you what you're supposed to do if you trust it, you know. And that's not really stood me too wrong. So, like, I mean, Joe Ledger, the reason, going as far back as Patient Zero, I would have to say almost from page one, I was like, oh, I know this dude entirely too well. I mean, it felt like me. Joe Ledger talks the way I talk. It just happened.
Mhm.
A character like Monk Addison, and I'm glad in a weird way that I encountered him now that I'm a bit older, because he's also me.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And that's the best characters is, I mean, I think ideally, if performed well, people should look at King Lear and be like, that's me. That's what you want. So, I mean, I love playing them, and they're very different people, very different characters. But I love it's good stuff. It's fun to act those roles.
Yeah.
I mean, you picture in your head when you're writing these characters, I don't know whether you picture established actors or whatever, or archetypes. I mean, I don't. When I'm narrating, I just see faces, just sort of general faces. But I mean, do you do that? Do you write when you're writing? Are you like, do you have an actor in mind, or are you just
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
about somebody?
Yeah. And it changes too. Because like when I did Patient Zero, I had Chris Evans as he appeared in the Fantastic Four movies.
Right.
Buff looking, but also very funny. People forget
Yes.
that when he played Johnny Storm, he was hilarious.
He
It's the
was
only
funny.
really good part of those two movies.
Absolutely.
And also Ryan Reynolds was the same goofy thing. That Ryan Reynolds from Blade 3 was actually my model for. So I had those guys in mind. But now, with every book, I tend to change that.
Yeah,
With Monk, I actually had Javier Bardem in mind when I was writing it.
that makes
Uh,
sense.
Even though he's Latino, and I never Monk appears to be a white guy, doesn't matter. The right actor can embody the character. If we ever finally get around to doing a movie or TV show of Joe Ledger, I'd be fine with someone like Idris Elba playing Church.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Well, that's another thing, is that it transcends that sort of thing, unless you specifically stamp it down, hard. And I don't see why
Yeah.
you would. You're cutting yourself off from some great talent and some great ability in that.
Yeah.
in that
And
respect.
in the book, sometimes I will make specific reference to a character who looks like an actor, but usually it's supporting characters, not main
Right.
characters.
Aunt
So,
Sally comes to mind.
yeah, and actually, one of my friends, Francesco Tignini, who works on Picard and
Okay.
Discovery, is going to get the Joe Ledger books into Whoopi's hands.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so that's going to be pretty badass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
who knows what'll happen. But now also we've done. I was just calculating when you were talking earlier. By the time we record Joe Ledger Secret Missions, there'll have been 20 Joe Ledger books, counting Still of Night, Dark of Night.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, it's more than that. It's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 21 or 22.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's
And
just the Ledger.
and a decade of work.
Yeah.
Which is like, you start pulling out receipts and then you realize I'm old.
I mean, I didn't start my fiction career until I was 48. So
This is encouraging.
yes. So now that I'm
encouraging.
300, I've gone
Right.
seasoned,
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
Kagan will be fun too, because it has there are interesting little clues built in there, because that's a bit of a spoiler, but it's set 50,000 years from now. And so our entire culture is completely forgotten. The buildings have degraded. There's nothing left except what's trapped in glacial ice, because it was a glacier after our era.
Okay.
And there's also a lot of subplots dealing with two different H.P. Lovecraft gods. Hastur, also known as the King in Yellow. Borrowed it from another writer. And Cthulhu. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And
I'll get my spit guard up.
Yeah. And this is something some of the viewers might not know. I've tried to trick Ray a few times with stuff I put in my book.
You throw me curveballs all the time. It started with a joke. I think you and I started talking, and I made some joke about like, hey man, you threw this name into the book trying to trip me up or whatever. And then I noticed on the next one, there was another one. I went, did you? You were like, yes.
Of course.
So you throw me curveballs. I love that. It cracks me up.
The two times that's backfired on me, though. My favorite is I did a book called Ghost Walkers. It's set in it's a novel based on the role-playing game Deadlands.
Yeah. And
I had a character in there speaking Lakota Sioux, which is not one of the more well-known of the Native American languages that still exists. There's not a lot of Lakota Sioux speakers anymore. A lot of Lakota Sioux don't speak Lakota Sioux anymore. And I figured this is going to really, I'm trying to imagine how much trouble you're going to have to go through to learn how to do that. And it turns out, Ray.
My good friend that I acted with at the Shakespeare Festival was Lakota and actually taught me a little bit of the language. So I understand the pronunciation and a lot about the culture. And I wrote some obscenities to you saying, nice try, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah. But I was sure I had you for that one. And the other one being the Cthulhu Prayer. And
well, I was frankly shocked off of that. I mean, I can tell you specifically what I drew on to say those, Cthulhu words, but I was honestly shocked when, when you came back and you're like, yeah, that's it. I was like, great, good.
Yeah, and because there's not enough vowels to make that language really work.
There just aren't. It's a lot of guttural and different sounds and, that sort of thing. Yeah. That's a tough. So there's more of that coming in Kagan.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of that language. I found online a Relia to English translator.
Ooh.
So it's kind of like that when you're translating something from English to Irish or whatever. So I can put anything I want in it, and it tells me how it's spelled, how the words and everything translated into the language of Relia, which is the underground city that
Yeah.
Cthulhu's in. And so there's plenty of it, Ray.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll find that translator myself.
I'll send you the link.
Thank you. Yeah, that's excellent. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really fun for me to be able to go on these journeys and to explore these worlds. And I talk a lot about narration as being, oftentimes there are books that I'm given to read that I never would have chosen for myself necessarily. And I always discover really fun things and really great writers from it. And I mean, a lot of stuff I would be reading you anyway. I just get to do it first and get paid for it, which I'm eternally grateful for.
And I'm glad you're reading so many of my friends too. Peter
Yeah,
Fine,
I love that.
Ziegler.
Peter and Scott, and what I want is for all of you to collab on something
We will.
and I get to narrate it. That would be really fun.
We are cooking something up. Just
Sweet.
Most folks are looking for a hole in our schedule. So a couple quick questions to read here.
Oh,
Jonathan, you do a wonderful job writing a strong female. Thank you. At expressing her point of view. This is from Epiphany. I don't feel like, oh, here's a dude writing what he thinks a chick is. Your female characters were complete and real, especially in ink. How do you approach? Let me answer one part of that first, and then there's a second part for you, Ray.
okay.
I actually do my research. So since that book dealt not only with female characters, but with a relationship forming between a lesbian and a bi-curious woman who has up until then been straight. So it had a lot of emotional complexity, also a lot of stuff specific to life experiences that are completely outside of my own. So I do research. I interviewed dozens of folks about their experiences, just as I interviewed, hundreds of folks about their tattoos, because I didn't want it to be a cliche. I didn't want it to be a male cliche of what happens between two women who are getting into a relationship. And interviewing is one part of it. Listening is the other part of it. You have to hear what they say. Listen to what they're telling you about their experience. And that research really helped me craft characters that are beyond my experience, but I felt, I did fairly well. And, readers have really responded to it. And I've heard a lot of folks from the LGBTQ community even asking if I was gay, which I'm not. But, you do your research with an open heart and an open ear, and you get it. The second part of it is, Ray, from a reading standpoint, Ray, how do you approach reading a female character?
Well, it's first of all, on the first part of that, I completely concur. I mean, it's wonderful. There's nothing worse as a narrator than reading something, and knowing that it's just wrong and you're giving it voice. So it was great for me to be able to read this because, it's humans, and it was terrific. Now, as far as doing women's voices, that has been a real bugbear of mine for a long time. It's difficult. You don't want to do there's certain tricks that you'll see actors and narrators employ to greater and lesser successes with doing other gendered voices.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it can all sound the same. Now, with your book, because there's so many women and so many strong characters in it, I knew that I really needed to pay very specific attention. Thing is, every voice is completely different. There's a reason why some security places use voice print technology. Every voice is completely unique, like a fingerprint. And it's not just I'm speaking in a high voice now, because there are women who have lower voices than I do. It's more about musculature. It's more about, neck position, jaw position. Where is the voice? Is it in the mask? Is it in the chest? Is it lower? And that's not a pitch thing. There's some people that have more air in their voices than others, and so you just constantly look for those different varieties. And then in deciding the way these women sounded, I tried to diversify as much as possible so that the listener would know who the hell was talking at any given moment. But it is a real challenge because you also don't want to be disrespectful, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
I know we're running a little short on time, so I want to grab a couple more quick questions.
Yes.
Bridget asked, does Ray have to remind himself about the voices of characters that haven't appeared in a while? For example, in Dogs of War, when you go back in time a bit and to characters that had died in earlier books,
Yes.
do you remember their voices or have to go do homework?
I do remember them. I mean, I will sometimes ask for audio samples if somebody hasn't turned up in a really, really long time, but for the most part, I remember them. And then, you have a character that kind of appears sporadically throughout books, like Nicodemus. And I decided early on as a choice, it's not a bug, it's a feature. I decided early on that he would just sound different every time.
And as a result, I make him a different personality now every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's one of those characters that I love those enigmas.
Well, you'll have fun with Nicodemus in the next book too.
I'm looking forward to it. But for like, I have such a clear picture in my mind. I know what Bunny looks like. I know what Top looks like. I know what Church and Rudy and everybody, that central core. So when I get to narrate a Ledger book, it's like reuniting with old friends, so that's good.
Yeah, and that's how it feels to write them too. Like I'll be writing the 12th or 13th book after I finish the second Kagan book. And by the way, the title has changed from Shriek to Discord.
Nice.
Which makes more sense to the plot. And that will have a return of a character you haven't narrated since Dragon Factory.
Whoa.
The character of Sam, same as me. Remember him?
Yes.
The clone of a certain villain. Well, he's back now, known as under the name of Helmut Deacon, and has been in college and is coming back to visit his adopted father, who is Church.
Helmut Deacon. Yes.
Now the challenge is you did him as a kid. Now 10 years later, he's an adult.
Yeah.
And that'll be fun to see that too.
Looking forward to it.
Just real quick, talk about, just mention some of the other projects that you're doing that on audio, but have a physical book component to it. Like,
well, I mean, obviously there's the authors that we talked about, Scott Sigler and I also, Jack Carr. I have a book that just released last week that he did. And then I'm also like, I don't know, over 10 characters in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, the audio production that came out. And there's more to come. I don't know how much I can talk about.
Don Winslow too.
Huh?
And Don Winslow.
Don Winslow, I've gotten to do a lot of his books, which has been, marvelous. I mean, his whole sweeping, series about the cartels was quite a journey. That is one of the only books. There was one scene in that where I needed a break. I had to stop.
Yeah.
It was that disturbing. But yeah, there's, there's a lot. I've got my fingers in a lot of pies, as far as different projects.
Cool. So. Yeah. Same here. And I'm under a whole bunch of NDAs too.
Yes.
There are a couple projects, one of which will be tied to a TV series where the series is going to be like 70% based on somebody else's work and 30% based on my work.
Oh, cool.
I've already thrown your name in there as a possible reader for this, for the books I'm writing for them.
Love to.
And I see Chrissy is back, so I know we're probably out of time.
Hello, Chrissy.
Hello, Ray. I'd like to remind.
That was a very fast 45 minutes. Holy crap.
That was really fast. That was amazing. I'd like to remind everyone, if you'd like to purchase your copy of Ink from the Doylestown Bookshop, there's a link in the chat. You can also take a look at Relentless, which is a new Joe Ledger book. book 2 in that series, I believe. You can pre-order it at
It's actually
DoylestownBookshop.com.
technically the second book in the Rogue Team International, but it's in Joe Ledger. It's the 12th overall.
Right.
And what I can do, by the way, I can send if you guys order the book through the mail with Doylestown Bookshop, they can let me know, and I can send them signed book plates that can go in the book.
Oh, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. That way, you guys get personalized books.
All
So
right.
you have to do those.
We do have a quick question, Jonathan.
Sure.
I know the answer, but they do not. Is that
So-
Spuds MacKenzie on your shirt?
It is not. This is a shirt that looks like Rosie surfing, and my dog Rosie. I actually have a little carved statue of Rosie.
Oh,
One of my fans actually carved and painted this.
really?
Rosie
Amazing.
fighting Cthulhu. See the tentacles? But no, this Big Fun Shirt Company in Eureka, California makes all my favorite shirts. I think I have one of every pattern, and they had one with a little rat terrier surfing.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, Spuds MacKenzie is a bull terrier. Rosie's a rat
He
terrier,
is.
and a little bit of King Charles.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for joining us today on Independent Bookstore Day. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here. And please, 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 wherever you are in the country, support your local independent bookseller. They are the lifeblood of every community. They just are. And you don't know how important they are until sadly they go. So keep them alive. Get
Keep
in
'em
there
alive.
and buy books.
And it doesn't matter where you are in the country; they'll ship. So
That's
Yeah,
right.
order from Doylestown.
Yeah.
I mean, order from a bookstore you remember as a child, maybe if you don't, live there anymore, that kind of thing. So important that we keep our independent booksellers flourishing.
Yeah, and they're also very much like a family thing too, because I mean, the folks working at Doylestown Bookshop have been there forever. I think you were in diapers the first time I met you there.
My daughter was 4.
Exactly.
She's
So
23
it
now.
has that very family and community feel where it's a shared love of books, and you only get that in independent bookstores. So please reach out to them, order some books, not just mine, but everybody's books. They can get you anything that's out there. They can order anything.
That's
for you.
right.
That's right.
So, and thank you so much, Chrissy. Thanks for everybody at Doylestown Bookshops, and thanks you guys for joining us. And of
Oh,
course,
thank you.
Great.
Thank you everyone for watching. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.